What's up guys, welcome to Void of Dust Gaming, your channel for fresh Arena of Valor content. And after I've done a little more detailed series on mages, different equipments and sorts like that, I want to do basically the same for Marksmen in today's video. And I want to focus basically on the different types of physical equipment that you can choose for the respective Marksmen in the game. Before I made this video, I used this tier list maker as I wanted to see the different classification that came from Arena of Valor itself. So if you take a look on the hero selection, you can see that Arena of Valor gives them some sort of basic classification. For Marksmen, these are Harass, Mobility and Initiator. And when you put all the heroes that are in the Marksman spectrum right now into those three categories, you can see that most of the heroes are actually Harass heroes with some mobility and just a few initiator heroes. So you've got 3 initiators, you've got 3 mobility champions, and you've got the rest of them as Harass heroes. So I didn't really find that to be super helpful. So what I was doing in my current tier list is that I put the heroes in the range department. Those are the heroes that have really good range, or at least really good range spells. So for example, with Violet and her S1, she gets some kind of range extender, and that means that she doesn't have to be really up close. Telenas is actually quite self-explaining, because as soon as you hit S1, she gets a range extended for a really long period of time. We've got attack damage heroes that are more sorts of focused on attack damage. For example, Elsu has a really good auto attack itself, so you benefit a lot from building attack damage with him. In the attack speed department, where you've got some crit heroes such as Brunhilde, those heroes have a better performance when you build attack speed items. And last but not least, the 4 heroes in the bottom column are heroes that are reliant on great mobility. So for example, Hayate has not 1 but 2 different abilities that give him mobility. So it's a lot about positioning and using your skills to your advantage. Same goes for Elandor, and even Lindis with her passive has a really good mobility setup. In my video, what I want to do is I want to take 1 hero of each of those respective things and take a closer look on their build in order to make it a little bit more visible what I was talking about in the theory. And I think that should be part of the next bit of the video. And I think all in all, you guys are going to see that there is a pretty stable standard build for all of these heroes, but you have some sort of detail when it comes to the respective role on the battlefield, and also when you're fighting against different heroes. So let's get started with the individual trade, and I would say we'd start off with Telenas as a good range example at the beginning of the hero classification part. Alright, so to start off the video, I'm going to show you my Caffeine build. So the first item that every single marksman hero out there in the world will take, or at least 80 up to 90% of those heroes, are the war boots, because it is the item that gives you mobility on the one hand, but also some additional attack speed on the other hand. There are exceptions. For example, Thorn likes to take the flashy boots because cooldown reduction is turned into attack damage with Thorn. Or for example, Caffeine likes to take the Gilded Greaves in order to maintain some additional CC resistance, but usually what you want to take is the Blitzblade as well as Slick Stings for some additional attack speed, because as long as you have the range extender, you're going to fire more arrows into the enemies, and you are going to back that up with some lifesteal. So we've got the Beast in this build, but I can show you a different build that is taking the Bloodthirsty Bow, but this one needs to be activated. So Beast is a little bit more reliant, because you have the life gain every single time you hit an enemy with that. Both builds are focusing on Fenris as the late game item, because Fenris gives you 200 attack damage. So this is going to ensure that you will have the attack damage over time when the tanks are starting to build up tank items. So that's basically the normal Telenas build. You want to have the range on the one hand, but you want to back it up with some attack speed as well as some critical chances here. Therefore you're taking the Sanctity with 100 normal attack, and the great thing about this item is that it's going to give you additional critical chance as well as additional critical damage. So that's basically the staple for Telenas. The next one is Elsu, and Elsu plays a lot differently than the other heroes because usually most people are just using his snipe ability, despite the fact that he has a really solid auto attack. So he really packs a punch on his auto attacks. Therefore what we're trying to do, we're trying to put at least some attack speed in that in order to have really strong auto attacks over the time. As you can see, we're building the war boots again. This time it's not Slick Stings, but this time we're going with Devil's Handshake for normal attack increase. And then there's a new item coming up to the build with this, which is Fafnir's Talon for some additional attack speed as well as some lifesteal. And you're going to cause additional physical damage up to 8% of the target's current HP, which is actually quite nice on your S2 as well. And some of these heroes want to have at least a little bit of armor penetration, and therefore we are building the Dawning Star. If you don't like the Dawning Star, you can also use Muramasa for some additional armor penetration, but basically the builds are all some sort of mixed. So you have some attack speed, you have some attack damage. For example, you see that Fafnir's Tooth is part of this build as well, and then you're going with some utility stuff, for example armor penetration or some life leech with Bloodthirsty Bow here, as well as Fafnir's with 10% lifesteal. So that's basically the build for this type of attack damage based hero. Next champion is the attack speed based champion, but as you can see it doesn't really differ that much. So now we've got Muramasa in here, we've got Blade of Eternity as our late game item, but the overall composition is the same. So we've got War Boots again, we've got Blitzblade again, same goes for Telenas for example. We also are using the Clive Sancti here for some additional crit chance as well as some additional crit damage, and then we are going with the Bloodthirsty Bow for some additional life gain here. So it basically doesn't really depend that much on the equipment, because that's actually something that is mainly a staple. So you want to have War Boots, you want to have the Sancti, and you want to have at least some item that's going to boost your attack speed a little bit further. So talking about the attack speed roster, if you're taking for example Brunhilde here, you are using Devil's Handshake again, Bloodthirsty Bow again, War Boots again, but the enchantments are a little bit different. And we're now going to the mobility section, and I would say let's take a look on Elando, because that is a champion that plays a lot different than the other ones, but you will see that the item build still remains the same. So here we go with Elando, and what you can see, what's of course a little bit different than the other builds is that we now have the jungle item in here, but it's a jungle item that's focusing on attack speed. So we are going to have at least 3 real attack speed items in here, with Slick Stings, with the Scorching Wind and the War Boots, and then we're backing it up with the Clef Sancti as well, and again Bloodthirsty Bow combined with the Blade of Eternity. So I would say after a really short video you can tell that there is some sort of staple equipment on most of the heroes, and the staple equipment consists of the Clef Sancti, an attack speed item, the War Boots, and something else in order to make damage. And depending on the team composition, for example, if there is Thane in the enemy team as well as Malak on the solo lane, you will need some item that's going to shred through armor. So I would advise you to go with Muramasa or the Dawning Star. If there is a lot of stuff going on in the healing department, usually you would not take Uriel's Brand or something else as some kind of super special item. It might depend on the team composition, so you might want to need it, but usually that's not really necessary because your support and your mage are going to build Tomo the Reaper for the healing resistance. And if you have ever problems on facing something that is going to have a lot of mage damage, you want to try to avoid it rather by mobility than building an item, because with an item solely built against mages, you are taking a lot of the damage away that you will inflict against other targets. I've got another example for you with Hayate, because my Hayate build is actually a little bit different, because I am building Yoga's Edge here. So Yoga's Edge is a defensive item, and you haven't seen that on any of the other heroes that I have shown you in this video. So we're going with Fafnir's, we're going with Slick Stings, we're going with Cliff Sancti, and the War Boots. Wow, what a surprise. So that's the stable build again. Attack speed item, life gain. We're having War Boots for attack speed mobility, and then we're going with Clave Sancti for additional crit damage as well as additional crit chance, and then we're building Yoga's Edge because we do get a little slow with that item, and that makes us a little bit more powerful when we're going to follow up or we want to avoid fights, because the slow is not only working offensively but also defensively. So if we inflict damage to a target, that means a slow is applied and we can escape a little bit easier. But I think it's basically the same, so mages are not really that different. It is becoming a little bit more interesting when we're taking a look at the enchantments. Some of the heroes are going with alchemy right now in order to have some sort of better income, because a lot of those heroes need gold in order to be quite performant. So you will need at least 1 to 3 to 4 items to really outshine other heroes or other classes, for example the warriors or the mages. Therefore alchemy is actually quite good. This item here, or this enchantment Holy Summon, is really good, because it just means that you're going to deal more damage as you are summoning a holy spirit that's also attacking enemies. Sometimes people are using Sacred Protection, so if you ever happen to have a lot of fights where you are dying before you can inflict some damage, Sacred Protection is the item to go for. And if you have problems because you die a lot and you need to be in certain positions, you can use the enchantment from League of Humans that's going to auto-resurrect yourself. And that's basically it. That's the video. Nothing more to tell. Basically, marksmen have their stable set up, and that's something that you need to consider. And at least from my experience, I'm not building crazy amounts of different builds with certain heroes, depending on enemy team compositions, because you already have a really good setup when you enter the battlefield. Arcana wise, there are 2 different builds that I can talk about in this video. So the first one is focusing on damage, so it's 10 times Onslaught, 10 times Assassinate, and 10 times Skewer, and the other one would be 10 times Atrocity to boost your crit chance by 16%, but that's basically all I have to say about it, because it's actually not that different. So that's it for the Marksman. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comment section below. If you like this kind of content, of course a thumbs up is always appreciated. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you have the feeling that, look, I'm a new player and this might be interesting in the future, subscribe to the channel, because I will make additional videos for other classes as well. So stay tuned for more content to come. Thanks for watching and have a good night.